Become a sustaining member of the Commonwealth Club for just $10 a month. Join today.
Hi everyone, I'm Crystal Contreras and I'm the director of Inforum at the Commonwealth Club. Welcome to tonight's program with award-winning actor, activist, and author Alyssa Milano. She will be in conversation with fellow actor, director, and Time's Up Leadership Board member Amber Tamblyn. If you'd like to ask either of our speakers a question during this program, you can do so in the chat or comment section of the live stream that you're currently watching. The Commonwealth Club has gone full speed ahead with the full slate of live and online programming this fall. We ask that you consider donating to the club to help us continue our work this year and beyond. Please visit us at commonwealthclub.org/online to learn more, and you can also click the donate button you see to the right side of your screen live during this program. Now, please join me in welcoming Alyssa Milano and Amber Tamblyn to Inforum.
Hi everyone. Hi, welcome to the Babysitters Club Treehouse party emo girls punk rock extravaganza with Alyssa and Amber. Actually, our launch of our new podcast.
Smash that like button. Hit subscribe.
Smash it. What happens in the dark stays in the dark. Hey, who's got a tampon? You know what? Alyssa and I go way, 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 way back. It is my absolute honor to be here tonight to celebrate her gorgeous, gorgeous book, Sorry Not Sorry. And for those of you who don't know, though you do know, Alyssa Milano is an actor, a producer, a podcast host, a mother, a wife, a feminist, a political activist. I mean, like truly the boatload of things that I admire and I love. And I'm just so honored to be here talking to you about this book, which I feel like I've read a lot of memoir and essay collections. And this is like something I want to talk to you more about, but this solidifies for me the fact that you should be directing a lot more, Alyssa, because you are the narrator of your life, but you are also sort of the narrator of a generation. And you see things in a very large way. You see a peripheral essence of what's happening in the world and what's happening in politics and in your own health and in feminism and in movement building and in the cruelty and the consequence of politics. And I really enjoyed your perspective and the way that you were able to talk about your anger and the way you were able to talk about family and moments that were really difficult for you, whether that was hard for your family or hard for you personally or hard for the country. I just found it like quite refreshing, to be honest, as far as these types of books are concerned.
So let me just stop you for 1 second. Coming from you, like literally this could not be more of a compliment. I appreciate you so much. And I want everyone to know that you know, what you put out into the world is leadership through love and grace and brilliance through words and poetry. But also there are so few people that I feel like in our industry that I could call upon to be co-conspirators in all of this. And so thank you for all that you do. That is, I don't think people know enough about what you do. So thank you. I appreciate you, and I so appreciate just having this time with you because we don't get to hang out.
It's true. We're always like texting each other. It's either about like I don't even know, like a kids or a family thing, and or like the world is on fire. Like let's fix it.
Literally.
I do want to start by also saying that we are here because of the Commonwealth Club.
Yes.
And Inforum, and we're just so grateful. So thank you, everyone. Please go to the chats. If you have questions that you want to ask Alyssa at the end of this program, I'm going to be taking some questions, but mostly we're just going to talk. And I think I just want to start by asking the very simple question of very straightforward, which is, why this book and why right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I have been asked to write a memoir, of my life growing up in the entertainment industry and what that meant to me, and my struggles with my mental health and all sorts of different angles to enter through to this world. And it just didn't feel right. Like I was not going to write a tell-all, that was for sure. I knew that it had to include my activism, but I didn't know how it was going to unfold. And then I got COVID, and I already signed with Dutton. I promised them that I was going to write a book. And so I had to write a book, and the book took a very different shape after I survived COVID because I was incredibly sick. And it became important to me to almost write like an alternative history or textbook about this time that we are living through, and give it, because I know that we're going to be talking about this time. Our children will learn about this time from a very specific perspective, which is the hardships, how many people died during the pandemic, the political and social struggle of the nation, our global place in the community, all of these things. But what would be missing was our personal history in that. And so it became about, how do I tell the story of my activism and all the issues that are important to me, plus combining, my life story, which you can't separate those two. There's very specific moments in my life that led to where I am right now, but also to give my kids something that was going to fill in the blanks for them about the emotional and the passion of the struggle that self-aware, self-conscious people not only face in their lifetime, but also, as a political, social construct, what that all means moving forward, and how I hope they remember the beautiful things about this time. It's important to know all the things about this time, and it's important that they recognize how hard it was. But I also want them to know that me and their dad danced in the kitchen with them in between us on nights that we didn't know what else to do for them. So so that's kind of what it evolved into. And to be honest, I don't think that I knew it was going to be a book of essays even. I wrote a few of the essays, and then I was like, how am I going to thread this together? And it was Dutton that said, you know what, maybe you don't have to. Maybe you're more comfortable just doing some essays. And so that relieved a lot of the pressure that I was putting on myself of like, what story am I trying to tell?
Yeah, I think if there's ever a time to do it, it's now as well, because things feel so fractured and separated, and yet so connected in this like larger web of humility and things that are sort of bringing us to our knees, whether that's the political system and environment, whether that's our own personal healthcare and well-being, whether that's politics. I mean, it's just, they're all so separate, but they're also connected.
But also just like the adaptability and the resilience. It's really mind-boggling. I mean, we walk around now like there's really no pandemic happening, because we've learned to adapt with the fact that if we want to have, some sort of social life or continue to build relationships or businesses, that we're going to have to function in this space with masks on. I mean, it's just what, I mean, the the country is on fire most of the time.
Most of the time.
I mean, there's some wildfire going on, and we're like, no, it's fine. We'll just migrate inward. It's fine. Climate change, it's not a big deal. It's fine, guys. We got this. And it's mind-boggling to me the lack of prepared we all are, and yet we can still go, you know what, this is going on. We're gonna have to move through this and figure out, figure it all out as we go along. So
you mentioned a minute ago the sort of inability to separate the personal and the political, and I think that is, to me, one of the things that I gravitated towards you with as a friend and as an activist and an organizer, and even as an actress. I mean, in our business. And I kind of want to know a little bit about your origin story, and not as an actress, because we'll get to that. But I want to know your origin story, and you talk a little bit about this in the book. But when you felt that those two things were inseparable, was there a moment? Was there a time in which you said, like, I've been this kind of an icon. I've been the like sweet, funny, sexy chick. I've done all of these things. I was like the cult classic actress, but there was like this other part of me that I desired to show the world, and that I felt like I couldn't, frankly, keep my mouth shut anymore, because we all have that. I think those of us that do this work. And so I'm just curious what that was for you.
Well, for me, when I was little and I was on Who's the Boss, I had this real weird guilt, like success guilt, where I was like, I don't understand. This feels icky. This feels like I haven't earned it. I was a kid. And so I didn't understand, right? I didn't understand why I made ridiculous amounts of money, and my best friend from Staten Island was still, in Staten Island. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around any of it. And I mean, the story which I will tell is that my activism, like all great love stories, started with a kiss. And Ryan White, who is a dear friend of mine, who, for anyone who's watching who doesn't know, he was a young boy who was diagnosed with HIV in a time where there was such stigma surrounding HIV/AIDS, and basically people capitalized on the fear of this unknown virus. And he contracted the virus from a blood transfusion, which was very different than how we were hearing people got HIV. And I got this really random phone call from Elton John one day, who was like, I've got this friend, his name is Ryan White, and he's, he was kicked out of school because they told everyone that he could give HIV/AIDS to his co-students, and he would love to meet you. And so I did, and I met Ryan, and I don't know, we connected, I think, on this feeling different than other people, and this othering that was both part of our lives. And he asked me one day, he said, would you go on the Phil Donahue show with me and kiss me to prove that you can't get HIV/AIDS from casual contact? And I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, yep, that's exactly what I would love to do. And that's the moment that changed my life forever in a really profound way, because I realized, like, oh, this is why. This is what I can do with this that makes sense. This is what I can do with fame that doesn't feel as icky. And so, when people say to me, how do you deal with the trolls? It's like, you want to talk about trolls? Let's talk about being 15 years old and being trolled for kissing someone with the HIV/AIDS in the middle of, so many lies about it. of course, there was no social media then, so I would just get
I was just gonna say
hate
that
mail. Yeah, I got hate mail.
I almost miss it, don't you? You're
I
like,
do.
you could or couldn't open an envelope and you didn't give a shit. And now it's like
I do.
everywhere.
Like there were no alerts, someone else could read it first. Anyway, so that was the first moment. And I did, a lot of, I would say, more humanitarian philanthropy work. In 2000, I lived in South Africa for 3 months and volunteered in a township and a children's hospital. And that sort of bumped everything up to the next level as far as what I was willing to put myself in the middle of to try to learn and to try to make a difference. And then I was asked to be an ambassador for UNICEF. So I was blessed and was able to travel the world to really see the despair in humanity, the hardship that is unfortunately not unique. And, in 2000, when Gore had the election stolen from him, that's when the political activism started, where I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take
to the
this
next level.
To the next level, and it's probably gonna make some people upset, but it's what I felt like I needed to do. And so that's also when I started driving people to the polls, which is what I still do. I drive complete strangers.
I love that.
It's so fun.
What I do in my local place, my husband and I live in upstate New York, but I've been registering people to vote there. I mean, I've been a nerdy registrar. Poll worker since I was 17, since I couldn't vote, and I was like so nerd. I was so very Tracy Flick about it. So I deeply identify with that. And how do you feel? I guess do you feel like it had crossed over, especially in the last 4 years since Trump was elected and the years leading up to that? But do you still feel? How do you feel about this crossover into social media and the effect that it has taken on your personal life, if we're going to get real? Because it does take a toll. It takes a deep toll, whether you are an Alyssa Milano or whether you are somebody else who's doing the activism and movement building work.
Or even just influencers that post, pictures of themselves I'm really torn. I'm torn because
I want to know about the confliction. So tell me about that.
Great. Okay. So on the one hand, it's like any other tool, right? You can have a hammer that is a tool to build things, or you can use it to kill people, right? So it's sort of that same concept of it's how you use it. And I can appreciate, because the way I didn't understand Twitter, I didn't get it. My mom told me to get on Twitter. I was like, I can't.
That's hilarious.
I can't, Mom. It's just like another thing and I can't do it. And so what happened is I started following, somehow the algorithm got it really right. And I started following protesters on the ground in Iran during the Arab Spring.
The Arab Spring, yeah.
And it was the wildest thing for me because, we weren't getting anything from the news because the media was blocked out. And so I was getting these firsthand accounts from, youth protesters that were hiding in closets. And I was like, oh, this is time travel. This is time and space travel. Like I am in Iran with these people. My heart is there, and I could actually use this moment to share with my followers what's going on there, because maybe they're not seeing this. And so that's how I sort of started using Twitter. And it wasn't as volatile. I mean, obviously so much has happened as far as people taking advantage of our First Amendment, mistaking harassment for First Amendment rights. And there is a difference, everyone. There is a difference.
There is.
you can have the freedom to say whatever you want, but you cannot harass people, especially on a business platform where a CEO and an entire board get to decide what their platform is used for.
Mhm.
Has nothing to do with your First Amendment rights. Anyway, so that part drives me nuts. Obviously, we have had some bad actors, and I don't think they're all in this country, who have tapped into the power and the algorithm of the tech side of political persuasion and propaganda, and it's hurt the entire country. It's hurt the entire world. And the thing that is so upsetting about it is, instead of our news networks taking the high road and saying, they actually went along with it, you know, and everything started to feel like a soundbite. Everything started to feel like a soundbite. And the art of, you know, I talk about it in the book, like, just imagine if Trump and Lincoln had a debate, what that would sound like. You know, one of the greatest orators the world has ever known, with this man who can't string a sentence together. And, you know, the debates were a perfect example of this. They made it seem like we were about to watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like everything was about, you know, graphics, and in this corner we have, and it just, I don't know how we come back from it. I don't know how we come back from it. I don't know how we come back from living in our silos and living in these echo chambers where we are not able to have the tough conversations with people with opposing views. It's so dangerous.
Well, I think the lack of having them in person too, and so the last 2 years especially has made it even harder, because everything is done virtually. You know, if you and I were right now sitting at the Strand Bookstore in New York City, or at the 92nd Street Y, you know, there'd be a guarantee that somebody would be able to ask an uncomfortable question, and we'd be able to have like a tough public forum and conversation about it that might result in people understanding each other differently, which is what I live for. I live for the blood of that. I mean, to me, one of the things that was so thrilling, I mean, I come from a mother who was a council facilitator who works in schools in the LA public school system. And
it's amazing.
And I've worked with sitting in circles and not being someone who pivots towards the most offended person in the room, and learning how to do that didactical work. And I think what's been so fascinating too about watching you and working with you in the last, 4 to 6 years, is saying, like, this shit is hard, and it is not for the faint of heart. And we are in such a difficult time in which, you're right, there's like an expanse of learning new things about our culture and about the language we use to describe identity and people's beliefs and who they are. And but there's no physical way to sit and be with each other to talk about those things. So like, social media and the virtual world is expanding faster than our psychological and social emotional well-being is doing.
But can I say that also, I think that that's why being in the public eye and being opinionated and getting it wrong is sometimes more important than getting it right, because people get to learn from our mistakes about language and about how to listen to those closest to the pain, and all of those things as activists that we sort of have to learn the hard way. We do in a very public way, and I think that there's something very special about that, because people could say, oh, you know what, I remember she got shit for using this, or whatever it is. And so we are almost like the bridge between getting it really politically correct
Mhm.
and allowing ourselves to fail so that others could get it correct. And
Right.
and that's, I think, important. Plus, I mean, I don't know about you personally, but all the growth in my entire life has been in the uncomfortable moments. So why wouldn't we also allow that grace in social political moments? Like,
Mm.
let's sit in the discomfort. Like,
There's
I'm
that
okay
great
with it.
there's that great Henry Miller quote, all growth is a leap in the dark.
Yes.
And I use that all the time because it's also a reminder to myself of the same thing of like, you are never going to find the better version of yourself and what you have to offer this world if you are
Mhm.
sitting comfortable.
Right.
And that is like a really hard thing for Americans to evaluate and to take into consideration is their own introspection. And introspection is very hard, and it comes at a price in a world where everything is sort of put out on social media, and there's all this talk about cancel culture and everything else, which for the most part isn't real, but maybe also is partially real. I feel like there's like no cancel culture. There's just like, there's timeout culture, and people are not really like, well, they don't want to like talk about that. But for the most part, people get like bad timeouts, and then they can come back and do whatever. But
I don't know. I think there's some people that are not allowed back in that I wish
for now.
Yeah, I wish had more of a road back in. I mean, obviously not the monsters or the people who are breaking laws.
I personally feel that way about like Al Franken. Like that's somebody who
right, or Aziz Ansari. Like I totally get that was a horrible situation. She was very, very hurt, but wouldn't it be incredible if someone could come forward like Aziz and say, you know what, let's talk about the gray areas here because I didn't feel like I did anything wrong. And I'm learning right now that this is what I did wrong. And so I'm going to learn from that and let's move on. And let's all learn how to be better men from my mistake.
I'm waiting for the guy to do that. I'm not sure which one's going to do it, but I'm waiting for it.
Yeah,
there might be one along the way. We'll see.
I hope so. I mean, it would be like you're like I don't know. I
just wouldn't wait for it. I mean, it's hard, and I'm married to a comedian. Like I know the feeling of sensing that the world is changing around you, and I have felt it myself. I'm 38 years old, and I consider myself pretty much in the know and pretty open and understanding of how the world is vastly changing and wanting to be a part of that change. But it is scary. It is a scary condensed force that we are experiencing in this country that has been further propelled. And so I want to like talk a little bit more about the political stuff too, and then I want to talk want to like go backwards to some acting questions, but I do want to know, like, you are so centered in political movement building now. I feel like if I need to know like the in of what's happening and what's going on, I text you. I'm like, Alyssa, let's hot tea, give it to me, boil, scalding, burn it in my mouth, give it to me. And you always know. You're like, you always know what it is.
Well, and if I don't know, if I don't know, I have no problem asking people
that's very true,
who do know, and I'll have no, I'll say things like, that's a really good question. Let me look into that a little bit more. And it just piques my own interest. But I don't know. I think, it's a very, and I know that you get this, but it is a very symbiotic relationship to be almost straddling both sides of the fence, because the politicians need activists to propel their policy forward, and activists need politicians to propel their issues forward and to make it. So to have both sides and to be able to have access to, the grassroots organizers that are on the ground in all of these states where I could get like the real inside story, but then also be able to call state legislators or you know, elected officials and say like, what's going on with, you know, all of the voting machines that were found in the warehouse?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? So it works really well together.
Yeah.
You know, and I do think, sadly, there are very few people now, in my experience, I can say, there are very few people that are elected officials on either side that are still in this for the fight and the right reasons. It always feels like there's a give and take, like, oh yeah, I'll get you that info. Can you tweet this out for me? And like, there always feels like there's, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine type
Right.
of thing.
Right.
And it's really, that the challenge in all of it is figuring out how to manipulate to get the response that we want as activists.
Mhm.
And so, you know, that's just the most honest version of how I can answer that question. I mean, it's there are very few people where it feels like they're leading from a place of love and service.
Yeah, when it's not coming from a guileless place of the scratching the back situation,
like
but
a selfish
fundamental change.
Mhm.
Yeah. I know people are here to see Alyssa, but I'm just going to hold your book up again because I want to remind people to get this book, to tell your
Thank
friends
you.
about this book, to get this for your young feminist friends and nieces and nephews and everyone in your life, because I think this book is really powerful, and it really captures a life that is singular and very special, and that has a really beautiful, profound duality between the entertainment business and politics and life as a woman, which is singular in its own right. But your story is particularly unique. Do you ever feel like, you have to, and this might sound cheesy, but like have to make a choice between like acting, producing, directing, like doing that part of your life that you've done for so long since you were a child, and this other part of your life which now takes up so much of your time and so much of your space? And do you ever stop, and it doesn't have to be the truth or the totality of it, but do you ever feel like, I have to give up one for the other, like this is too much for my life? And especially, I'll just say, post having COVID and all the health issues that you went through with that, the exhaustion. You know, you and I texted a lot about that. And I just want to know if you feel in this moment like there's some things I wish that I could give up a little bit more for the other. And I don't think anybody would be mad at you if it was one that didn't sound as couth as the other.
I think I have always been the type of person to not have any real specific plans about the outcome of my career and life, and really take advantage of the opportunities that I'm given. I realized a long time ago that, especially in our business, the idea of searching for balance is something that would just hurt me in the long run and make me feel like I was less than a complete human balancing all of this out. I think that this idea of like that we have to figure out this balance between like motherhood and producing and, you know, whatever our dreams are, wherever like the wind blows us, is, for me at least, it was setting me up for failure. So what I've learned to do, and by the way, again, this might change. It might change because this is how my life sort of has always been. I try very hard to just be present and in that moment. So if that means that I am, you know, at a protest, I am there. I am not worrying about, you know, the kids or the pitch that I've got to do next. I'm just present and in the moment. And so, and that goes with acting and producing and writing as well. Like I just try to devote my wholeness to the task at hand. And that works really well for me as of right now. I mean, I'm tired. I'm not going to
Yeah.
be like, I'm great. I'm full of, I mean, I'm tired. Politics it's exhausting, and it's most of the time not fun. And there's very little reward. And
when do you feel like, honestly, when do you feel like you are at your strongest with political work, with any of that type of work? Like, when do you close the day out and you go like, I did some good shit today? Like, I feel like I made something. Like, is it like, when you connect people, or when you feel like you've helped something go viral that needs to find a voice? What is something for you that has that effect?
It's rarely that. I think for me, I get rarely the viral moment. I think for me, I get great joy from helping people. Like, it's just, that is where my fulfillment lies. And that can mean lots of different things to lots of different people. But for me, it means trying to fight for the most vulnerable. And so when I feel like, or to storytell for the most vulnerable. So when I feel most successful in like a day is when I could say, you know what, that's going to make a difference in either this group of persons' lives or this person's life or whatever it is. And I also want to say is like, my work isn't always big either. My work is also about community and service to the community, and can be very small as well. And I think that that's an important thing to say, because I don't want people to feel like they can't contribute. Everyone can contribute. I heard Richard Branson say the greatest thing once. He was talking about how his hope in his philanthropy is to empower everyone to take care of their own circles.
Nice. I like that. Yeah.
Therefore, at some point, all the circles start to overlap. And that's when the world truly changes, is when. Yeah. So I try to keep that in mind, as well as the bigger picture. But I feel most content when I'm helping.
Yeah.
In some way.
That's I love that as like a foundational thought, because it can feel so exhausting and so tiring, and we're all running the gamut all the time of everything. And
the other thing that's really helped is letting go of being attached to a certain result.
I love that. Yeah.
And I learned
but that also comes hand in hand with you saying like the idea of like the public failure, or saying like, this is how I grow publicly. And this is not easy. This is difficult to be able to do this so publicly in so many ways. And it shows people the benefit and the grace of it. But to not be attached to the thing that you want.
Well, I look at people like Alice Paul, right, who wrote the Equal Rights Amendment in 1923, who we are closer than we've ever been. And she has been dead for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so the idea that we do this work, not for seeing the work come into fruition, but to plant the seeds, to cultivate it. I mean, I might not be alive when women are included in the Constitution other than the 19th Amendment. So you have to find joy in the work. Yeah. Because and this is true for politics too, is I don't have one elected official friend who feels like they're really making progress. It's constantly about protecting the rights we've already fought for and making sure they don't get rolled back.
Yeah.
So
what is progress?
So what is progress? Like what is that? Is it to continue the fight? Like, I don't know.
Is progress just about protecting or keeping us safe from regression, which I think in the last 4 years, especially, it has felt like a snowball effect in a way that it never felt before, where before it just felt like there was momentum and a lot was happening. But we see the incredible work that people like Stacey Abrams has done, and local organizers on the ground in different states who are working to protect the right to vote. And speaking of some of that too, you just spoke so publicly about the ERA, and you spoke in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, right?
Oversight Committee.
The Oversight Committee. Will you talk a little bit about that experience and what led you to do it, and just talk about it?
Well, I mean, just to give everyone a little history on the Equal Rights Amendment, it was written in 1923. 1972, it passed. Congress put this arbitrary poison pill deadline on the ratification that was extended once to 1982. When 1982 came, we only had 35 states that ratified. Then something super miraculous happened, which was this queer Black state senator from Nevada after Trump was elected, and the Women's March happened and Me Too went viral. She was like, I'm going to fight to have Nevada be the 36th state to ratify after all of this time. So Senator Pat Spearman fought to get Nevada to ratify. They were the 36th. Shortly after that was Illinois. That was the 7th.
That's right.
And then Virginia ratified. So
Most
then
recently,
we were right. So now ERA is ratified, but now we are working to get this arbitrary deadline killed, basically.
Yeah.
And so, I hear a lot, well, what rights do women not have? Like, what? I don't understand. And honestly, we have no...
Women can have it all: sexual harassment, rape, unequal pay. We can have it all.
Mm-hmm. Right. But also, like, lawyers have been able to manipulate the 14th Amendment to also include women. Women didn't have the right to vote until the 19th Amendment. That was 5 amendments after the 14th Amendment. So clearly the 14th Amendment did not include the right to vote. So anyway, Congresswoman Speier has a bill to lift the arbitrary deadline and hopefully get the ERA printed and published in the Constitution. And I was asked to testify as a modern woman who advocates for equal rights for women. And it was stressful. It was because I feel, and I don't know if you feel this way, but for me, I've always felt that, like, I have to work extra hard to overcome the image of being a celebrity.
Yeah. So
it's why I take classes all the time. I love to study. I research. I mean, I have my office this is the only neat corner. It's like a beautiful mind in here. And so I studied really hard, but it was stressful because I was like, this would actually change the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And definitely change our daughters' worlds. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself. And, it was exactly how I thought it would be. The Republicans tried to attack me. But I was very, very, Katie Porter about all of it. I stayed really clinical with my notepad, and I just, tried to, And so it was good. At the end of the day, I felt very good about what I was able to accomplish with that hearing. And it was Ellie Smeal. It was all of these incredible feminists, and I felt very at home, but also like I need to make these people proud because I can't be given this opportunity and not do it to the best of my capacity. So
can you tell me a little bit about writing this speech for that what you actually like read to them and spoke about? What was that like, the experience for you, especially having now, written a book? Talk a little bit about that process, about how you prepared for it and how you wrote it.
Well, it was interesting because I actually testified at a ghost hearing, a shadow hearing, they call it, a few years ago for the Equal Rights Amendment. And my perception and perspective of what it was then, and I went back and I read that speech before writing the testimony, and it was vastly different than the angle that I was ready to attack on this time. And so what I went into it thinking is like, listen, we've ratified. Like, this is done. We won. Like, that was one of the lines, this is not a debate on whether women should have equal rights in the Constitution.
It's done. Yeah.
That debate is over. We won.
Yeah.
And so I wanted it to be less, and in the shadow hearing, you can watch the video, it's on YouTube, but I started to cry in the shadow hearing years ago. And this time I was like, fuck it, I am not crying. I'm going to be so damn strong. And so I wrote the testimony without one opportunity to well up, because I knew if I gave myself any emotional connection to that testimony that I was going to lose it. So I stayed really stoic, and I was like, I'm going to write this speech so it's impactful, but it doesn't allow for the opportunity of me to look weak to these people who are going to pounce anyway.
Yeah. That's, oh God, it's going to pounce anyway. Yeah, that's a great point.
And the thing, it's very intimidating. There's a time clock. There's like a clock. You only have 5 minutes for your testimony. You put on your microphone and everything. And you go. And they had technical difficulties. So in the middle of my testimony, they stopped me for like 12 minutes. And then I had to go back in. And their one witness that was in opposition of the Equal Rights Amendment actually leaned over and she was like, boy, that really probably messed with your momentum. And I looked at her and I was like, I'm an actress. Not much can mention when you have directors like cut, like let's try it again. And I was like, don't even. Yeah. And then so I went through the whole thing, and I think one of the smartest things that I did was that in the edit of the testimony, I edited it down to like 3 minutes and 50 seconds, because I knew once I got there, I would emote more than like when I was just in my office reading it.
Right, of course.
So I wanted to allow that for that time. And so it wound up being perfect. And everybody else was long in their testimony and got cut off. So I felt very good about just being just that,
Well, it's pretty powerful. I've watched the video. I recommend it to anybody who hasn't seen it and seen your words. And I feel like it's a thing that we can be proud to show our kids when they're older, of like, I did everything I could. That much I can say, no matter the outcome. Again, Sorry Not Sorry. This is the amazing book. We're talking to Alyssa Milano. I'm going to ask you some questions. You got some wonderful questions here from people who are in attendance. And one of the ones I always want to know about as far as craft, which is just about, somebody asked, how do you find the words and patience for writing a whole book? I've written a lot of books, so I empathize with that. It's very difficult. But I want to know, coming from this particular book, first, and what that has been like, what the writing process was like for you. Did you do it all at once? Did you think about different essays? I mean, you said you had written a few of them, but then once you sold the book, once it was happening, then what?
I actually sold the book before I even knew what the book was.
Right. Oh, that's right. And but you had a few essays, right? That you were like,
after Dutton gave me this opportunity, I was like, oh, I need to sit down and actually figure out what this book is. Right. It was going to be a memoir about my activism. I was not ready to. I did not think that I would get as personal as I do in the book, and that evolved out of having COVID and feeling like I almost lost my life, and I needed to I needed it to be personal.
Yeah.
So the process was a lot of editing and re-editing and a lot of rereading and I had a great editor and my husband would be incredibly patient and read things and it once I knew that it was going to be a book of essays again and that I didn't have to like thread it all together as like a beginning, middle and end, it became a lot less daunting. I wrote a book about baseball many years ago. I've written 4 children's books for middle schoolers. So I went like a little because all of those endeavors were not. I also wrote a graphic novel, which is really bizarre. But it was all of those. Those were not really like the grown up eloquence that I knew that I had.
They were
in
also
me.
not as personal as this is.
That's
in a
true.
lot of ways.
But I knew that I wanted to make it rhythmic and poetic and those things that I knew I had in me. So it was just about fine tuning and editing and going back and it really helped doing it in essay format. It's not. I mean, you write a lot of. You write like incredible, not only poetry, but you also write novels, which I don't understand at all. like that's just mind-boggling to me. But also, you write a lot of op-eds, and so writing a book of essays is not unlike.
Very true.
Writing op-eds where you have certain things you want to talk about real specific topics and you just dive in and you go in and you re-edit and, and you do
you
your
have
research.
A whole chapter in here about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which is a much bigger topic about women, and it's just really powerful. And I think like every woman this last year can remember and will remember their entire lives exactly where they were when she died. I was sitting on a street fair on the ground in the middle of Vanderbilt Street in Brooklyn, and saw it on my phone. And I was with my 3.5-year-old daughter, and like, I just didn't even know how to process it. And I sat there and sobbed in the middle of the road because they had blocked all the streets off. But it's just such a, like, I love that but I felt it, the way that you like said in the opening sentences too. You're like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's dead. And that's happening. This is past news, but you're reading it while happened for me while I'm writing it. And to that end, like, because I have like a bit of an answer, but I'm curious yours, like, as far as advice of writing and like that, you could have made that in those first few sentences in this book, a much bigger pontification about, this moment in which you learned about Ruth Bader Ginsburg dying while you had died while you were writing this book, but you're just sort of, that's who you are. You're like the nuts and bolts. You're like, this is what happened. Here's why it fucking sucks and why it's painful and what we can all do about it. But like, is there anything that you want to give like advice wise?
Yeah. I mean, I think
as far as writing or even producing any of that stuff,
I think storytelling is really important. I think we often don't realize that our words are such that that if we think of it in a stream of consciousness kind of way, chances are, if you write it down, you'll be able to work it so that it will have specific meaning. And so there are themes, there are sentences. I mean, I knew what I wanted the last word of the book to be. Do you know what?
Beautiful. I love that.
Do you know what it is?
No, tell me, because I have 2 chapters left.
Just look at the very last word.
I'm so excited right now. Can I say what it is or should I not?
Sure.
Beautiful. Gratitude. Gratitude.
Yeah. So
that's really beautiful.
I think
who taught you about gratitude?
That's a really good question. I don't know.
Anyone in your younger years, or is it?
I don't remember.
Maybe it'll come to you.
Or maybe it was just always. Maybe
always
it's not
there.
something. Yeah, maybe it wasn't something that was a moment where I learned it, but maybe it was by example or, you know, I don't know.
I had a writing mentor named Wanda Coleman, who was a poet. She's sort of the unofficial poet laureate of Los Angeles. Brilliant poet. Died several years ago, but I remember growing up when I was a writer, and she always said that there's no such thing as writer's block, and that is just when the muse is sleeping, and that we are always like forcing productivity and forcing creativity to a degree that the muse inside of us doesn't want to do that and doesn't keep up. And the best thing we can do is to let her sleep when she wants to sleep, so that when she's ready to create, that it's there for us. And I think that was such a profound shift for me as far as like professional writing advice too, to just have a moment to say, I can't do it all the time, every second. And just because it's not there in that particular moment doesn't mean that it's not ever going to come back. And I always just love that. So if people are feeling frustrated about their writing or about their creativity, to just remember that sometimes we're just absorbing, right? Like, especially in 2020, I don't know if
it's like you need room to breathe.
Exactly. Like 2020 was not meant to, parts of that was not meant to be a particularly creative year, because I think a lot of artists and empaths were absorbing, you're absorbing information.
Just trying to stay alive also.
Stay alive.
That's that not, part. Yeah.
That part.
That part's not, it's not really conducive to creativity. The struggle of health.
Someone else has asked, activism helps my mental. I love this question. Activism helps my mental health, but I'm always cautioned not to live just for others. I need to live my own life too. How do you care for your mental health? Especially with everything we've just talked about.
I have a fucking team of experts that help me, and medication. And I think it's real important to just destigmatize all of that and just say therapy, psychiatrist, I'm on an antidepressant, I'm on gabapentin, which is actually a seizure medicine that helps with my anxiety. I think as women, we are built to feel guilty when we are taking care of ourselves. And my little girl was really, I had this conversation with my therapist where he was like, I think you feel bad, like you're letting people down when you rest. And I was like, yeah, you might be onto something, buddy. Yeah. And so I said to
what? That's rude for you to be down on the nose. That's rude. I don't pay you to tell that kind of
and it's so easy.
Let's simmer it down.
And it's so easy. So I said to Bella, who's 7, and I said to her, Bella, sometimes mommy feels like I'm letting you down if I go up to my room and rest. Do you feel like I'm letting you down? Like, can we just talk about that for a second? She goes, no, Mama, it's very important that you rest. It gives you time to be more powerful.
Oh,
and I was literally like, okay, I don't think that's how I see it, but the fact that she sees it that way
is kind of all that matters.
Because she will grow up seeing her mom rest. And thinking that like rest makes you more powerful, makes your brain more powerful. That's what she said to me. She's like, yeah, it makes your brain more powerful.
God, I love that.
So, I mean,
that's great.
If we could just allow our children to see us struggle a little bit more and see us like work through the exhaustion and the frustration and the sometimes anger, and to be able to say to them, a couple hours later, like, oh God, I'm so sorry. I yelled at you before. I was just so overwhelmed. She's like, yeah, or my son's like, it's okay, Mom. I think it's so important. It's so vital. So important.
I love that. I'm going to close with sort of a double question, which is just on the heels of that, and about our kids and our future, which is our kids and is everyone else's kids. And how do you sort of have tough conversations with Bella, with your family, like especially with younger children, about climate and bodily autonomy. Is there any like advice you want to give as a mom to a daughter? What that's any particular conversations that you have and your thoughts on that?
Well, for instance, consent. I started teaching my children about consent at very young ages, not through consent as we know it to mean, with sex, but consent, did you ask your sister if you could play with her toy?
Yeah. Smart.
And Milo will be like, no. Bella, can I play with your toy? And Bella will be like, no. I'll be like, you know what? No means no, Milo. Give her toy back. You got to ask first. So teaching the lessons where they are in their brain development and in that moment, I think is really important, because otherwise it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary. I mean, I don't want to scare them. I want them to have gratitude. I want them to have hope.
Yeah.
I want them to have all of those things, but I also want to protect them and but I also want to inspire them. But I also, it's like there's so much, but I also's about parenting. But it's, I mean, it's the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. And I'm really honest. I'm not gonna, and there's a bunch in the book about it. I'm not gonna say to women like, just, it's scary. I lay down at night and wonder, like, did I fuck them up today? Like, how much therapy are they gonna need because of that one thing that I said, so it's, I think we are, society wants us to be like, oh yeah, it's all so beautiful and it's the greatest thing I've ever done. It's really powerful, and it's great, but it's scary. It's the scariest thing I've ever done. Also, like, this love that you have that is so
terrifying.
It's ferocious, and it's like I can't, like, I want to eat their toes, and then I'm loving them so much just to raise them to be their own humans, which is so counterintuitive.
Yes.
To love something so much to be able to let it go at a certain point. It's like, what? No.
Nobody really ever tells you how vulnerable it makes you. That is for sure. Okay, we're at the end. I want to thank our audience for all of their great questions, for the wonderful Alyssa Milano and her beautiful book, Sorry, Not Sorry. But before we end, it is always a tradition to ask the speakers, that would be you, my love, one question, what is your 60-second idea to change the world? No big deal, but I feel like you could probably answer that in 60 seconds.
I think it's really not as complicated of a question as it sounds. I think that if we can get infrastructure, meaning clean water, food, housing, and medication to everyone in the world, which, I don't know, I think if all of the billionaires donate a little bit of money to make that happen, it would be, we can then focus on things like climate. I think we're in such turmoil as far as humanity goes that it's really hard for us to understand, because people can't get food on the table. It's really hard for us to see the bigness of climate change and what needs to be done. And so if we just got those basic things, food, clean water, medication, and housing to every person on the planet, then we can live happy lives. Basic.
I think that's fantastic.
I think it was only 10 seconds. That wasn't even a 60-second idea.
We'll save the other 30 seconds for the the Braves or the Astros. Which one? Which one, Alyssa?
Oh, I can't.
I know. It's dirty, isn't it?
It's really dirty.
My husband would reach through the computer and I'd be like, you better say the Braves. But
I mean, I don't know. I just am very, very sad that the Dodgers are out of it. Can I just say that?
Yes, you can.
And not have to pick anything else.
That's fair. Thank you so much, Alyssa, and thank you everyone for joining tonight at Inforum at the Commonwealth Club. And thank you to the Bernard Osher Foundation for supporting tonight's event. I very much encourage you again to go buy my friend's book. It's really beautiful and profound and kind of a perfect little treat for this moment. If you want to watch this virtual event and support the Commonwealth Club, you can go to commonwealthclub.org. My name is Jennifer Aniston, and thank you so much for coming tonight.
You're the best.
I love you, Alyssa.
I love you more. Thank you.